let's verify that we're able to properly configure BGP neighbors of both the I and E BGP flavor. So here we've got 3 different routers and the configs for them. You can see the topology. Let's go to router 1. We see router BGP 65100, which matches what we would expect from the topology. Great. Then we see our neighbor. The neighbor is reaching across the WAN to the .130 address, and we're saying AS65000, which matches. So this is an E BGP neighbor that we're setting up, and we have to understand that there better not be routers in the middle here, because we've got a time to live for this E BGP neighborship to time to live of 1. Then we've got router 2. Router 2 has 2 different neighbors. We're pointing from router 2 to router 1. Looks good. Choose better color. Router 2 to router 1, and also router 2 to router 3. So it's running both sides of BGP on router 2. And the configuration is relatively uninteresting, but we want to read it nonetheless just to make sure we're confident. So we see R2 and R1 pointing at each other. We see R3 and R2 pointing at each other. And this is a iBGP configuration between R2 and R3. So you really don't see a big difference inside of your configuration between eBGP neighborship and iBGP neighborship. You don't see a big difference, at least in the core command. You can recognize, though, by comparison of the remote AS number specified in the neighbor command versus your local AS. So if those match or don't match, that's what controls what the router understands to do. So the router understands, hey, this is a E BGP neighbor between R2 and R1. It's a iBGP neighborship between R2 and R3. So that's how to set up those TCP sessions over port 179 between all of your routers. And if this is properly set up, what we're going to see is we do a show IP BGP summary, and we would expect to see numbers of prefixes sent and received. And it's possible that if we're newly configured, we might just see a prefix received of 0. Why might that be? Well, we don't see any networks being advertised. So in fact, we would have the glue between the routers, but nothing to share based on this configuration.